Have you ever wished to be someone unshakable, someone untouched by criticism, rejection, loss, or betrayal? Have you ever dreamed of the day when you would finally stop feeling that quiet ache inside, that silent suffering that lingers even when you put on a brave face for the world? Maybe you're tired of trying to please everyone, exhausted from upholding an image of constant strength, when all you've truly longed for is a moment of rest, a pause from the pressure of being untouchable. But let me tell you something no one may have had the courage to say. As long as you keep avoiding pain, it will keep owning you. As long as you try to numb it, hide it, disguise it as control or toughness, you'll remain a prisoner, trapped by every word that wounds you, every action that disappoints you, every silence that eats you alive. And no, this doesn't make you weak. This is the reality for most people. The difference is, some just learn to fake it better than others. Carl Jung, one of the great pioneers of depth psychology, once said, "We are not what happens to us, we are what we choose to become." And that's where the key lies. It's not about protecting yourself from the world. It's not about becoming cold, distant, or untouchable. It's about bringing into light everything that's currently hurting you in the dark. True strength is not the absence of pain. It is the full awareness of who you are, even when you're bleeding. If you've made it this far, it's not a coincidence. This message is for you, the one tired of hurting over everything and everyone. For you who feels emotionally outmatched, like others have power over you that you can't explain. I want to show you it doesn't have to be this way. But for that, you'll have to face some truths that may hurt. And maybe, for the first time, this pain will set you free. Let's begin. You may think that what's hurting you is out there, in other people's words, in abandoned promises, in betrayals you never saw coming. But the truth is brutal. None of that truly has the power to hurt you, unless there's already an open wound inside you. What hurts isn't what others do, it's what those experiences trigger within you. It's the story you've been telling yourself, the old trauma you never addressed, the emptiness you cover with pride, with performance, with the desperate need to appear fine. Jung teaches us that the pain we feel from the outside world is just a reflection of what remains unresolved within. That's why some people go through devastating events and remain clear-headed, while others crumble from a single harsh word. It's not about what happens, it's about where it hits you. And here comes an uncomfortable truth. You still suffer this much because on some level, you believe you can control how the world should treat you. You're still trying to be good enough, smart enough, strong enough, understanding enough, as if that could guarantee no one would ever hurt you. But control is an illusion, and the more you cling to it, the more you'll live in constant tension, trying to predict the unpredictable, trying to avoid the inevitable. Want to stop suffering? Then stop trying to shield yourself from pain. What you need isn't more control. What you need is more awareness. As long as you believe people need to change for your pain to go away, you'll remain enslaved by their actions. Your freedom begins the moment you understand that nothing outside of you has power, unless it echoes something unresolved inside you. And that's exactly where the true battlefield lies, your unconscious, the part of you you don't see, don't understand, and can't yet master. That is what we'll begin to explore next. Get ready to go a layer deeper, because that's where real transformation begins. If this resonates with you, hit subscribe. Stay with us. The biggest lie you've been told is that you're in control of your life. But you're not as long as you're living on autopilot, reacting without knowing why, feeling without understanding the source, making choices you later sabotage. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's what's happening now. The pain, the sudden rage, the unexplained sorrow, none of it is random. These are signals from parts of you that have been ignored, denied, and buried. Jung called this the unconscious, and it's not just a fog of vague thoughts, it's a living force, an entire system of memories, traumas, desires, and fears that you haven't faced. Yet it continues to dictate how you feel, how you act, how you connect. You wonder why certain words shatter you, while others remain unfazed. It's because those words strike live wounds, ones you've never healed, only swept under the psychological rug. Jung said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it." Condemnation does not liberate. It oppresses. So what have you been doing? Judging yourself, silencing yourself, forcing yourself to feel nothing. But here's the truth. Ignoring the unconscious doesn't erase it. It only gives it more dangerous ways to emerge. In toxic relationships you repeat. In self-sabotaging patterns you can't break. In fears and anxieties that surface when things seem to be going well. This isn't bad luck. It's your unconscious trying to wake you up. But you keep hitting snooze. Do you want to stop being hurt? Then stop running from what's inside you, because as long as you don't know what's unconscious, you'll be a puppet of your emotions, and the more you try to guard yourself from external pain, the more vulnerable you become to the internal one. But there is a way out, and it doesn't lie in defense, it lies in integration. Becoming untouchable is not an act of resistance, it's an act of deep understanding. Most people believe the only way to avoid being hurt is by shutting themselves off. They build walls, wear masks, develop emotional armor, and pretend nothing touches them. They say things like, "I don't care anymore," or "nothing affects me." But inside, they're still bleeding, still corroding from the inside out. Because the problem was never feeling. The real issue is not knowing what you're feeling, and why. And that only happens to those who haven't yet met themselves. Jung said it best, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but as you touch a human soul, be just another human soul. And that human soul you're hiding behind a carefully managed image of strength is screaming to be seen." Becoming emotionally strong has nothing to do with being cold. It's not about avoiding pain, skipping conflict, or pretending you're unaffected. It's about integration, about bringing to light everything you've buried in darkness. You don't become untouchable by separating yourself from the world. You become untouchable when you realize that nothing outside can harm what you've already embraced within. When you integrate your fears, your flaws, your insecurities, you stop reacting to everything you see. You start choosing. You're no longer a puppet to your emotional triggers, and that is real freedom. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not what others expect you to be, not who you thought you had to be accepted, but what emerges from the union of light and shadow, between ego and the unconscious. Individuation, he said, is not a journey toward perfection, but a journey toward wholeness. You don't need to become a better person. You need to become a complete one. And here lies the secret no one told you. The more you run from pain, the more it haunts you. The harder you try not to be affected, the more fragile you become. But when you face your wounds, when you embrace yourself with all that is beautiful and all that is broken, nothing outside has the power to dismantle you. Still, this path requires courage. The courage to look inward, The courage to let go of your roles. The courage to feel, because it is in pain that the keys to your transformation are hidden. That's what we'll uncover in the next part. How suffering, far from being your enemy, can become the doorway to your greatest strength. Let's go deeper, and this time without fear. You were taught to hate pain from a young age. You learned that suffering is weakness, that crying is a waste of time, that feeling too much makes you a target. So you began running, avoiding, denying. But the more you flee from suffering, the more it pursues you, and the worst part, it changes shape. It disguises itself as anxiety, anger, numbness, boredom, or self-destructive urges you don't even understand. Ignored pain doesn't disappear. It just digs tunnels inside you, until one day, everything collapses without warning. Jung viewed suffering very differently. He believed pain was the soul's messenger, the alarm of the unconscious, the language your whole being uses to get your attention. He once said, "Depression is like a woman in black. If she turns up, don't shoo her away. Invite her in, offer her a seat, treat her like a guest, and listen to what she wants to say. But instead of listening, you shut down. You distract yourself. You keep busy. You numb. You do everything you can to avoid what really matters." What is this pain trying to tell you? The truth is, suffering hurts as much as it does, because you're still at war with yourself. A part of you wants to evolve, but another wants to keep everything the same. Something deep inside is crying out for change, but your ego, used to control, tries to silence that cry. And in that tension, pain is born, because change hurts. Growth hurts, letting go of old beliefs, cutting toxic ties, allowing what no longer serves you to die. That's grief. That's inner death and rebirth. But it is exactly within this ruin that something new can emerge. Because when everything inside of you crumbles, when your certainties collapse, when your vulnerability is laid bare, that's when you finally see who you really are. Without the costumes, without the acting, without the mask, and in that precise moment, suffering becomes sacred, because it brings you to your knees before the only thing that can truly set you free. Jung knew this. He understood that pain is not a system failure. It is part of the process. Pain is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of the journey toward wholeness. The problem is that most people give up before crossing that dark valley. They retreat, they distract, they return to the surface. But you won't. If you've made it this far, it's because you're ready to cross. And in the next part, we'll explore how this crossing unfolds, the path of individuation. No matter how lonely or brutal it may seem, it's the path that ultimately sets you free. Let's continue. It's getting deeper now. Few people have the courage to begin the journey of individuation, and even fewer have the courage to complete it. Because this path doesn't promise comfort. It offers no guarantees. It doesn't protect your ego, it dismantles it. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming who you truly are, but that means, above all, unlearning who you think you are. And that hurts more than any external rejection, because you begin to realize that much of what has defined you up to now was never real. You are not your achievements. You are not your traumas. You are not the image you've built to be loved, respected, or admired. All of that was constructed for survival. But surviving is not the same as living. Individuation is life's call beyond survival. It begins when the unconscious starts pushing everything you've repressed, hidden, or distorted to the surface. Jung said it required the dissolution of the persona, the mask you wear for social convenience. In other words, You'll have to strip off your own skin to find what lies beneath. It's in that raw, exposed process that you begin to become untouchable. Not because nothing affects you anymore, but because you've already walked through the fire. You've faced your monsters. You've looked shame, need, and rage in the eyes and said, "I see you, and you no longer control me." That inner clarity, that lucidity in the presence of your own darkness, gives you a strength that no validation, approval, or external power can ever match. You no longer need to be loved by everyone. You no longer need to win every argument. You no longer need to appear strong, because now you know who you are, and no one can take that from you. The real emotional armor isn't a shell, it's a core. It's the integration of all your fragmented parts into a center of consciousness that remains unshaken in the storm. You may feel pain, but it doesn't break you. You may be wounded, but you don't lose yourself, because you've stopped reacting to life, and you've started inhabiting its depths. But this depth comes at a cost: solitude. Not because you'll be alone, but because few are willing to walk this path with you. Most people are still stuck on the surface, in roles, in fear, in pretending. And when you begin to liberate yourself, separation becomes inevitable. But that distance is not arrogance, it's maturity. You don't pull away out of pride, you simply no longer fit where you once hid. And this brings us to the final point of this journey: awareness as your shield. Because it's not strength that protects you, it's clarity. This is what we'll explore in the final part. Awareness as the only state where nothing, absolutely nothing, has power over you. Let's finish this crossing together. We're almost there. Now that you've made it this far, something needs to be said clearly. Nothing, absolutely nothing, will protect you from external suffering if you remain unconscious of what's happening inside you. Words will still wound, rejections will still sting, losses will still shake you, until you wake up. And awakening is not a magical event. It's a daily choice. It's looking within, even when it hurts. It's taking responsibility for everything you feel, without blaming others, the past, or fate. Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." You've spent your life resisting the fear of not being enough, the ache of rejection, the loneliness of not being seen. But what did you do with all of that? You hid, you silenced yourself, you tried to control everything, you tried to be perfect, you tried to be strong, and all of it has brought you here, exhausted, tired of fighting the world, tired of fighting yourself. But now you know true emotional immunity isn't toughness, it's clarity. It's not about building a wall, it's about expanding your awareness. Because when you understand your triggers, your patterns, your wounds, other people's actions lose the power to destroy you. You still feel, but you don't drown. You still suffer, but you don't lose yourself. And that changes everything. What shields you isn't hiding from life, it's diving into it fully. Those who live on the surface get hurt by every wave. Those who dive deep find silence, stability, and power below. And that's where you're headed. When you begin living from that place of integration, presence, and acceptance, the world may still try to knock you down, but it won't find a place to land its blow. If this message touched something inside you, write in the comments, "I choose awareness." Let's start a movement, not of people pretending to be strong, but of people choosing to live in truth. And don't forget, the next video is also part of this journey. Keep going. The real transformation only begins when you don't stop after the first step. See you there.